Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is Explanation of Battle Through the Heavens episode number 244 based on novel. So let's start. Hun Clan, he has succeeded. Yuan's and Zhu Kun's expressions suddenly changed as they stood at the headquarters of the Alliance. Their faces were filled with shock as they were lifted. They looked at the thick blood cloud outside of the defensive barrier. For the first time, they could sense an aura, which caused their souls to tremble at that spot. That aura was something that only an elite Dodi possess. The only person within the blood cloud who could become an elite Dodi was naturally Hun Clan. Today is the day that I, Hun Clan, has gained the title of a god. Blood rain fell from the sky in all directions. The entire world seemed to have become scarlet at this moment. Is this the strength of an elite Dodi? Even the heart of Yuan involuntarily felt a deep helplessness after seeing such a terrifying attack being destroyed by Hun Clan with such ease. No wonder it was so difficult to reach this level. The gap between the both of them was just like two completely different worlds. You are actually fantasizing about being the world's savior with this strength of yours. Hun Clan's scarlet eyes stared at Yuan. His tone contained a faint mockery. He immediately waved his hand. A blood light spluttered from his hand. After which, everyone saw that the mountain below and the countless experts on it were directly slaughtered. No one could escape or resist. Everyone's expressions once again changed upon seeing this ferocious technique of Hun Clan. This so-called Alliance army appeared extremely insignificant at this moment. Yuan, I have given you an opportunity back then. Unfortunately, you did not grab hold of it. Hun Clan's blood eyes stared at Yuan as he slowly said, "Let everything end here." Hun Clan admired the many faces that contained horror and despair. Suddenly he felt a little lazy. The things that he had found troublesome to deal with back then currently had difficulty attracting his attention. An elite Dodi was just like the god of this world. Everyone else were just like ants in his eyes. Hun Clan's long finger was gently pressed down as he spoke. The world immediately fluctuated. An endless bloody chi gathered rapidly at the tip of his finger. Finally, it transformed into a bloodlight that directly hurried towards Yuan. Yuan's heart was startled when he saw Hun Clan attack. The do chi within his body hurriedly whistled out. However, he was preparing to maneuver the natural energy to put up a defense when Hun Clan smiled. He pressed his finger and softly stated, "Halt." After this voice sounded, Yuan was immediately startled to discover that he had lost connection with the energy in the world. This unexpected change caused some shock to surge onto Yuan's expression. The reason an elite Do Sheng was so powerful was not because of the great strength of their Do Chi. Instead, it was because they could maneuver the naturally energy without restraint to attack and defend. However, just a soft voice of Hun Clan was able to halt the ability of an elite Do Sheng. In this way, it was equivalent to break an arm of Yuan. Gud shattering black finger. This unexpected change caused one to feel shocked. However, Yuan was extremely experienced. After detecting that he was unable to maneuver the natural energy, the do chi within his body surged to the limit. A low cry sounded. Monstrous do chi gathered into a huge finger. The finger was covered with mysterious lines. After which, it ruthlessly struck towards the bloodlight. Bang! Bloodlight and the huge reel-like finger suddenly collided in the midair. The seemingly hard do chi defense burst apart rapidly with great ease as the two collided. Finally, the bloodlight ruthlessly smashed onto Yuan's body an instant later. A mouthful of crimson blood was spat out. His body staggered backwards. Fortunately, Zhu Kun intervened from behind, aiding him in stabilizing his body. A Dodi existence dominates this world. You are really far too naive to maneuver the natural energy in front of me. Hun Clan laughed faintly. He suddenly lifted his hand and aimed at the dense blood cloud in the sky. After which, he clenched his hand gently. Blood cloud churned. Immediately a thunderclap sounded. A huge blood-colored lightning descended from the sky. It cut through the empty space and ruthlessly smashed towards the Alliance army. Take formation and attack. Yuan hurriedly wiped off the trace of blood on the corner of his mouth as he cried out in a stern voice. If this blood lightning was allowed to strike, the Alliance army would definitely suffer serious injuries and deaths. The Alliance army quickly braced their attention after hearing Yuan's stern cry. Vast and mighty do chi swiftly gathered into a huge do chi dragon. It subsequently charged forward and ruthlessly collided with the blood-colored lightning. Bang bang! The two enormous being collided in the sky. Glaring intense light shone throughout every corner of the central plains. However, the entanglement of the two did not last for a long time before that demonic blood lightning forcefully scattered the huge do chi dragon. A pale expression surfaced on the faces of many experts in the Alliance army as the huge dragon disappeared. All of them spat out a mouthful of blood together. Clearly, they had been injured by the backlash. One man alone was able to fight the entire alliance army. The strength of an elite Dodi had actually reached such a terrifying extent. Regardless of how large the group was, it seemed to be completely insignificant in the face of such strength. Yuan and Zhu Kun exchanged glances. They noticed the shock in the other party's eyes. Although they had already expected that an elite Dodi would be extremely terrifying, they still had difficulty believing the reality that appeared in front of them. Despite having gathered so many experts, they were actually unable to even stop a Hun Clan. Dodi is far too terrifying. Yang Jin's face was filled with bitterness. They clearly did not have any chance of victory in the face of that type of strength. A vast and mighty voice filled with a bloody scent descended from the sky and resounded over every corner of the central plains just as the expressions of Yuan and Zhu Kun change. Hun Clan. The area around the Alliance headquarters immediately turned into an uproar after hearing this name, which was currently regarded as a demon. Everyone suddenly stood up. Their faces were covered with horror as they looked towards the sky. A hurried warning siren sounded within the star realm while everyone was shocked. The Alliance army rushed out from all over the place and spread in all directions. Finally, it turned into a black mass of powerful army that was suspended in the sky. The Alliance army had clearly undergone quite a lot of training during this half a year. The manner in which the army currently acted involved a much deeper cooperation compared to the past. Their auras also appeared unified. The chaos gradually calmed as everyone looked at the big army of black mass floating in the air. It seemed that the action of the Alliance army had caused everyone to feel slightly reassured despite everyone understanding that this reassurance was extremely fragile. Yuan, Zhu Kun, and the rest had appeared in front of the large army at the same time. Their expressions were grave as they lifted their heads to look at the layers of blood cloud outside of the defensive barrier. At this moment, the bloody scent in the world seemed to be much denser as compared to before. This aura does indeed belong to Hun Clan. Yuan inhaled a deep breath of air. He suppressed the irritation and uneasiness within his heart. With a wave of his hand, he spoke in a deep voice, "Everyone, ready yourselves." The Alliance army immediately cried out in unison after hearing this. Their aura was quite strong. If we do not stop him this time around, this entire Dodi continent would likely be controlled by Hun Clan. At that time, all creatures will die. Yang Jin spoke in a solemn voice. If nothing unexpected occurs, this would be their final battle. Yuan and the rest nodded quietly. Hun Clan had arrived while being accompanied by the might of a Dodi. Just he alone would be able to fight against the entire Alliance army. If they were careless, they would likely be defeated in this war, which had continued for a long time. "Is there any news from Xiao Yan?" Lei Ying asked. No. Yuan shook his head and replied. "The inheritance of the ancient god is not a joke. It likely requires quite a long time. But we do not have so much time left." Lei Ying laughed bitterly. Yuan was quiet for a moment before he said, "It is not that I do not wish to inform him. However, all of you should know that Xiao Yan is our only remaining hope. Only if he successfully advances into the Dodi class will we be able to fight against Hun Clan. Otherwise, even if we were to summon him out before that, it would be completely useless. At that time, we will only bury our only hope." Yang Jin and the rest sighed softly. All they could do was to nod their heads. They also understand that Yuan was indeed speaking the truth. Some of the younger generation of our three clans has already been transferred away. At the very least a little of our bloodline will be preserved. Hence, even if we fail today, as long as Xiao Yan can succeed, the bloodline of our three clans will still continue. Yuan spoke in a deep voice. "Therefore, we must not call Xiao Yan out before he succeed." "You are right. In that case, we will do as you say. Our Lei clan does not have anyone who is afraid to die. Even if that bastard Hun Clan has really become a Dodi, my Lei clan will still dare to fight him." Lei Ying clenched his teeth and came around. He cupped his hands together and said. Yuan smiled slightly. The ripples in his heart had also slowly calmed down. He lifted his head and his eyes looked at the thick blood cloud. Currently, it was time to live and die with the Alliance army. The blood cloud that covered the sky did not move as the Alliance army waited solemnly. Rich bloody scent drifted across the sky. However, this kind of silence did not cause one to be relaxed. This was because everyone could sense the feeling of an imminent storm. The pressurizing silence continued for around an hour. Finally, ripples rose within the blood cloud, which had covered the central plains for over half a year. After which, the blood cloud covering the sky slowly parted in front of many people's eyes. Soon after, rushing wind sound appeared. Figures riding on black fog swarmed out in all directions from the blood cloud like floodwater. Finally, they floated outside of the huge defensive barrier. Their eyes were densely cold as they stared at the black mass of people inside. The Hun Clan is finally here. The expressions of many turned somewhat pale as they looked at the large army that covered the sky. Although they had already anticipated this scene, Their hearts still felt an endless horror and despair when this moment finally arrived. The Hun Clan's army was suspended in the sky. They did not say anything. Instead, they simply watched the countless number of people inside the defensive barrier below like a pack of fierce wolves. Suddenly, a path was formed within the army. Soon after, a blood color came over from a distance away. After which, it transformed into a blood lotus, which was filled with an endless bloody aura, and floated in front of the Hun Clan's army. The blood lotus was suspended in the sky. A human figure with messy bloody hair sat on it. The bloody stench that permeated the sky had reached an extreme level. Finally, the air moved and the bloody aura agglomerated into blood droplets all over the place. Blood rain fell and splattered onto the defensive barrier. This spectacular scene caused many to feel an endless chill within their hearts. Hun Clan, Yuan and the others stared intently at the human figure seated on the blood lotus. Both of his hands were involuntarily clenched tightly. That aura was far too terrifying. Yuan, you have lost. Hun Clan sat on the blood lotus. The long bloody hair behind him danced in the wind. Those scarlet eyes smilingly stared at Yuan's group within the defensive barrier as he slowly said. Yuan's eyes sunk. He cried out, Hun Clan, the ancient clans has long held an informal agreement that our war will not hurt the ordinary people. This action of yours will definitely be met with retribution. What a joke. Hun Clan laughed softly. Immediately, his body slowly stood up from the blood lotus. He appeared like the lord of this world overlooking the lands. The current me has already surpassed this world. Who can condemn me? Rules are always made by the strong. From today onwards, the Dodi continent will belong to my Hun Clan. Hun Clan's voice contained an endless bloodthirstiness as it reverberated over the sky. It caused the expressions of an increasingly number of people to pale. Given the way the Hun Clan acted, if it really controlled the Dodi continent, it was likely that everyone would have to live in an endless and constant fear in the future. I am the final victor of this war. A bloodlight surged within Hun Clan's eyes. Soon after, he extended his hand and aimed at the barrier below, which protected countless people. Suddenly his palm was clenched. Yuan, given that you were once an opponent who can match me, I shall allow you to witness what is called the strength of a Dodi today. The bloody rain in the sky gathered as his voice sounded. It turned into an extremely thin bloody line. The blood line flashed across the sky in a lightning-like fashion. A hundreds of thousands feet long black line appeared in the sky as the bloody line passed. The space itself had been directly cut apart. At the same time, the defensive barrier below, which was built by many experts combined, did not create any ripples as it simply exploded apart in front of those many stunned eyes. Everyone became dull as they saw the final defense disappear. Regardless of how the blood rained onto his body, the bloody scent caused them to feel death approaching. Just a mere random strike and the defense formed by Zhu Kun and the many alliance army collapsed. The expression of Yuan's group became ugly as they watched the defensive barrier being destroyed. They also became extremely gloomy. The strength that Hun Clan currently possessed caused even them to shudder. In formation, Yuan's expression was gloomy. His body rose into the air and suddenly cried out sternly. Even though he was clearly aware that he was no match for his opponent, he must still fight until the end. The densely packed alliance army also cried out furiously after hearing Yuan shout out loud. Their cries shook the land. Monstrous Dodi surged out from within his body. The momentum even managed to scatter some of the blood cloud that covered the sky. Gud mirror. Yuan's body floated in the vast and endless Dodi. The seals formed by his hands were altered. Dodi gathered. Finally, it turned into an energy ancient mirror that was tens of thousands of feet in size. After gathering the Dodi of so many experts, a terrifying annihilation-like ripple immediately rose from within the ancient mirror. Yuan and the others understood the strength that Hun Clan currently possessed. Hence, they had unleashed their strongest attack on the first strike. The strength of many were gathered along with the might of the formation in order to unleash such a terrifying attack. Yuan spat out a mouthful of essence blood the moment the energy light mirror appeared. The blood scattered into the light mirror. Immediately, light rose from it. Yuan had a grave expression. The seal formed by his hands rapidly changes. Finally, one could see the energy light mirror tremble intensely. A light pillar, which was hundreds of thousand feet in size, suddenly erupted. Even the air itself was destroyed wherever the light pillar passed. The light pillar had penetrated through the entire sky. It was clearly visible to the entire central plains. Everyone's hearts were lifted at this moment. Even Hun Clan would likely have difficulty blocking such a strong attack, right? Hun Clan, who was standing on a blood lotus in front of the countless pairs of eyes, merely smiled indifferently. Those blood-colored palms shot towards the terrifying light pillar heading towards him from below. His finger was extended and pressed gently. Shatter. A soft word sounded and a furious dragon-like light pillar came to a sudden halt when it was still 10 feet or so from Hun Tiendi. That finger of Hun Tiendi also gently landed on the light pillar. Boom. Not even the slightest energy ripple was formed as the finger landed. The seemingly incomparably terrifying light pillar collapsed an inch at a time under those stunned eyes. Finally, it emitted a boom and turned into light spots that fell from the sky. Jiu Yuan, I will be the final victor of this battle. Hun Tiendi looked down at the ugly expression of Jiu Yuan below. He smiled faintly as he slowly said, regardless of what the situation is, we will be able to turn things around as long as we can drag things out until Xiao Yang appears. Jiu Yuan clenched his teeth and said. Yang Jin and the others once again laughed bitterly upon hearing this. It was not that they wished to delay the matter. However, in the face of Hun Tiendi's absolute strength, all of their actions are completely pointless. All we need to do is delay for a little longer. I can feel that the dragon's seal, which I have left in Xiao Yang's body, becoming increasingly faint. That kind of pressure is not something that an ordinary elite Do Sheng can possess. Zi Yang by the side suddenly opened her mouth and spoke excitedly. She and Xiao Yang were connected by a dragon's seal. Although she was unable to use it to learn of Xiao Yang's exact situation, she was able to rely on the intense ripple from the dragon seal to guess Xiao Yang's condition. The hearts of Jiu Yuan's group shook upon hearing this. Their originally a little gloomy eyes revealed a joyous expression. This was likely the beat news that they had received during this period of time. In that case, we must block this fellow today no matter what happens. Zhu Kun lifted his head. He looked at Hun Tiendi, who appeared a little demonic as he stood on a blood lotus in the sky. A slight ferociousness flashed across his eyes. Jiu Yuan, reorganize the alliance army. I will fight him. Zhu Kun did not wait for a reply from Jiu Yuan after these words of his sounded. His body directly shot towards the sky. Soon after, he twisted his body. A huge dragon, which size left one speechless, appeared in the sky. That vast and powerful dragons might barely manage to scatter some of the blood stench that filled the place. Ancient Oid Dragon, Hun Tiendi looked at the huge dragon floating in the sky. Some interest appeared in his eyes. He laughed. I am in need of a steed now that I have advanced into the Dodi class. If you submit to me, I can protect your ancient Void Dragon tribe. What do you say? Bang. Zhu Kun did not reply after hearing Hun Tiendi's words. He widened his dragon's mouth. Purple gold light ruthlessly shot towards the latter while being accompanied by a destructive force. Stubborn fellow. Hun Tiendi involuntarily shook his head after seeing this. He randomly waved his sleeve. The light ray with a shocking momentum directly erupted into light spots that was scattered all over the place. He moved his body and he appeared above the huge dragon body in a ghost-like fashion. He gently stomped his foot and the many purple gold dragon scales burst apart. Dragon blood flowed out from the wound like a waterfall. Roar. This sudden intense pain also caused Zhu Kun to struggle intensely. That extremely strong huge body would cause the space itself to shatter each time it rolled. Boom. Hub Tiendi's blood eyes appeared indifferent. He once again stomped ruthlessly with his foot. That tens of thousands of feet large body had been forcefully stormed by his body until it fell from the sky. It smashed a mountain range below into a sunken deep gully. Many experts from the Alliance army revealed a dim expression in their eyes after they saw that even Zhu Kun was so easily defeated by Hun Tiendi. Uninteresting fight. Hun Tiendi's body once again returned to the blood lotus. He glanced at the countless number of terrified faces and slowly shook his head. Next, the blood lotus supported him as he slowly rose into the sky. Let everything come to an end. I do not like the name Central Plains. Hence, this place shall be destroyed. Hun Tiendi lifted his right hand gently, after which, he pointed it towards the blood cloud that was spread throughout the Central Plains. A dense and ferocious expression slowly surfaced on the corner of his mouth as he suddenly swung his palm. Bang! The thick blood cloud suddenly churned crazily as Hun Tiendi swung his hand. Violent energy that left one numb swiftly gathered within it. In the blink of an eye, countless blood-red lightning flashed and appeared within the blood cloud. Bang! These blood-colored lightning, which was filled with a destructive force, had just appeared when it came smashing onto the Central Plains below from all directions. Immediately, the entire Central Plains trembled at this moment. The land split. Every spot that the blood lightning descended on ended up self-destructing because of the sound it emitted. This included even those hidden deep underground. The area around the Alliance had already lost the protection of the defensive barrier. The bodies of those millions or tens of millions of people had ended up exploding as the blood rain descended. In an instant, the area around the Alliance had been covered with viscous blood. Countless number of people fled crazily towards the headquarters of the Alliance. The scene was as though doomsday had arrived. Bastard. Jiu Yuan's eyes had nearly cracked as he watched this scene. Many experts from the Alliance were struck by the blood lightning. Without exception, their bodies, and even their souls had turned into a bloody fog the moment they were struck. The bloody glow in Hun Tiandi's eyes became increasingly intense as he looked at the central plains, which was covered in a sea of blood. He laughed out loud as he stood in the air permeated by blood lightning. It was as though he was a world-exterminating devil who had stepped out from the land of the demons. All forces, retreat and defend. Zhu Yuan's voice was a little hoarse as he cried out. Under the descending blood lightning, the Alliance army had ended up with terrible deaths and injuries. There was no telling how many experts had ended up dying in it. At this moment, all they could do was to shrink the defense line and firmly resist. Ziyang and the other ladies watched the monstrous sea of blood that filled their eyes. The back of their teeth involuntarily bit tightly onto their lips. This situation caused even them to involuntarily feel a despair. Kaylin hugged Xiao tightly in her embrace. She did not allow the latter to watch such a bloody massacre. "Mummy, will Daddy appear?" Xiao's small face leaned against Kaylin's shoulder. Her small body was trembling gently. "Good Xiao. Daddy will definitely appear. He still have to come and protect Xiao. Kaylin patted Xiao's back and softly said. However, her words had only just sounded when she suddenly sensed an extremely terrifying energy erupting from within the body of Xiao in her embrace. This strength had far surpassed hers within a short instant. Boom! While Xiao's aura had suddenly soared, the bodies of Xiao Zhon, Xiao Ding, Xiao Li, and the others became an inch taller almost immediately. Their auras were also soaring crazily. It is the bloodline strength. The Dodi bloodline in their bodies had been activated. Yuan was startled as he watched this scene. A wild joy surfaced on his face. After which, he suddenly lifted his head, only to find that layers of brilliant flames had suddenly spread in the empty space. They turned into an incomparably huge fire barrier that enveloped the area within a 5,000-kilometer radius of the Sky Mansion Alliance. Bang bang! The blood lightning ruthlessly smashed onto the fire barrier. However, it was not easily destroyed like earlier. Instead, the flame churned and incinerated the blood lightning into nothing. Flame rolled through the sky. Finally, it turned into a human figure covered in brilliant flames. The faces of Yuan and the rest revealed a joy that was formed from having survived through a disaster as they looked at the flame figure. "Xiao Yang, we have already reached our limit. Everything else will have to depend on you." The brilliant flame was just like a fire cloud that spread within the empty air. A terrifying temperature rose in this place, causing the sea of blood on the ground to quickly vaporize. "Alliance Chief. It's Alliance Chief Xiao Yang. The Alliance Chief has exited his retreat. We are saved. All hail the Alliance Chief." This sudden flame protection caused everyone, who were fleeing in panic, to come to a halt. Many pairs of eyes were thrown towards the sky. Finally, they gathered on a familiar figure within the brilliant flame. Immediately, the faces of everyone revealed an excitement and wild joy. A deafening cheer resounded over this place. Many of them had even knelt down in their excitement. The hope after despair caused their faces, which still had some lingering panic, to tear from their great joy. After the various battles, Xiao Yang's position in the hearts of everyone within the alliance was something that no one could match. Although Xiao Yang might be lacking in terms of age and experience, everyone knew that it was precisely these seemingly weak shoulders that were supporting the entire alliance. In the hearts of many members of the alliance, that figure was one that would never fail. This was a kind of cult-like crazy devolution that they had towards Xiao Yang in their heart. This kind of craziness would clearly spread wildly like a virus amidst this despair. Hence, even those who did not belong to the Sky Mansion Alliance also revealed an excited expression on their faces. They needed a support that they could rely on in the face of complete hopelessness. The fire curtain spread in the sky and enveloped the millions of people around. The human figure within the brilliant flame also became increasingly clear as the fire curtain spread. Finally, the flame weakened and a black-clothed figure clearly appeared in the air. It is really Xiao Yang. A large number of experts had clustered together a short distance from the Alliance headquarters. From the looks of it, all of them belonged to the same faction. At this moment, a burly man from within the group was lifting his head. His eyes were fiery hot as he looked at the figure in the sky. Rich excitement filled his voice. "Big brother Liu Qing, is it really him?" A pretty lady behind the man involuntarily asked. Who could have imagined that after having not met this person for just over a decade, the junior whom she had trained with at the Jianan Academy back then had actually reached the true peak of the continent? "Ha ha, Liu Fei, there is definitely no mistake. This fellow is really too terrifying. Back then at the academy, his strength was still similar to mine." The man was surprisingly the person called Tyrant Spear Liu Qing back at the Jianan Academy back then. Liu Fei bit her red lips with the back of her teeth. She lifted her head and looked at the distant sky, where the figure, which was worshipped by countless of people like a god, stood. Her expression was a little complicated. Who could have imagined that the person, who had a little conflict with her at the inner academy back then, would actually have reached such a stage? Some other familiar eyes were also observing the figure in the sky from other spots around the alliance. All of them sighed emotionally. Xiao Yang. The many experts from the Hun clan outside of the fire barrier revealed a dense shock in their eyes as they looked at the familiar figure. Clearly, none of them could imagine that Xiao Yan had actually reached this terrifying stage after having been missing for over half a year. Dodi. Hun Hendi stood on the blood lotus. His blood eyes had also revealed an intense fluctuation. A moment later, he finally could not resist muttering, "How is this possible? How is this possible?" Hun Hendi's expression suddenly became ferocious as he muttered. His voice had also turned into a roar that reverberated like a thunder in the sky. Hun Hendi could not be blamed for suddenly losing himself. He had paid an unknowingly great price in order to reach this stage today. Yet, after he had succeeded, he found that there was someone else who had also reached the same stage as him. How could he easily accept this? This was especially the case given that this person was merely an ant, which he could easily kill a year ago. The unbalance in his heart had reached its limit. "Ha, you are not the only person in this world who has advanced into the Dodi I class." A black-clothed young man appeared after the flame scattered. He lifted his head and watched Hun Hendi, who seemed to have lost control of himself. A smile was involuntarily formed. Those originally dark black eyes currently had a brilliant luster surging within them. They appeared unusually warm and deep. There was a fire seal on his brow. It was made of many different brilliant color. A kind of special fluctuation was being emitted from it. In the face of this ripple, the magma deep underground had begun flowing at a significantly faster rate. Xiao Yang quietly stood in the sky. There was not the slightest do chi ripple over his body. He appeared extremely ordinary. However, only a genuine expert could sense just what kind of unimaginable power was present within the skinny body. That strength could destroy the world. Your body has the scent of the Tu Shi ancient god. Hun Hendi was after all not an ordinary person. After experiencing the initial shock, the ripple within his blood eyes also calmed down. His expression had a trace of gloominess as he carefully observed Xiao Yang and spoke in a dense voice. "I was merely lucky in obtaining the inheritance of the ancient god." Xiao Yang laughed softly. "Damn nihility devouring flame." Xiao Yang glanced at him indifferently. Immediately, his eyes swept over this land, which was about to break apart. Finally, he extended his hand. A brilliant light landed onto Zhu Kun, who was sent flying towards the ground by a kick from Hun Hendi. The ferocious injuries on Zhu Kun's body were swiftly healed under this brilliant light. Zhu Kun's huge body swiftly turned into a human form after his injuries were healed. His expression was slightly pale as he smiled bitterly and spoke to Xiao Yang, "You are finally out. If you are a little later, everyone present would have likely been killed by that fellow. Elder Zhu Kun, please rest for a while." Xiao Yang said in a gentle voice. "Understood." Although Xiao Yang's voice appeared quite gentle, Zhu Kun could still detect that vague pressure contained inside it. That pressure seemed to surpass this world. Under it, even he had no choice but to lower his head. Immediately, he nodded and said, "We will guard against the army of the Hun clan. Hun Hendi will be left to you to deal with. Dodi could ultimately only be dealt with by Dodi." Xiao Yang smiled and nodded. His eyes swept below. The corner of his lips curled as he saw the Alliance army having suffered terrible losses. From the looks of it, Hun Hendi was clearly intending to kill all of them. What ruthless methods. "You have actually created such a massacre in order to complete the final step of the D-tier embryonic pill," Xiao Yang remarked softly. "The winner is king. The process is unimportant." Hun Hendi laughed coldly. He stared at Xiao Yang and said, "Today will be the decisive battle between all of us. If you lose, none of the Alliance army will remain. If you are defeated, the Hun clan will also be exterminated." Xiao Yang spoke in a faint voice. He had long since held a deep hatred against the Hun clan. If he had the opportunity, he would definitely not be merciful. He would kill those he ought to kill. "Ha, good. In that case, let me see if it is my Hun clan or your Alliance army that will be exterminated today." Hun Hendi laughed out loud. Monstrous blood chi erupted from within his body. It quickly turned into an endless sea of blood. The energy contained within this sea of blood was terrifyingly strong. "All members of the Hun clan, withdraw 5,000 kilometers." Hun Hendi cried out in an icy voice as the sea of blood spread. The experts from the Hun clan hurriedly pulled back upon hearing his cry. The fight between two elite Dodi could destroy the world. If they were to be caught in it, even an elite Do Sheng would definitely die on the spot. Moreover, everyone understood that the ones who were the key to victory were Xiao Yang and Hun Hendi. The result of their fight would decide on the final outcome of both parties. "Xiao Yang, today is the day I have become a god. Xiao Yang, you must let me have an enjoyable battle." Monstrous blood chi spread across Hun Hendi's eyes. He stood in the sea of blood. At this moment, a soaring pride was present. This person might be vicious, but he could also be considered a haughty and strong individual. One of them would definitely end up dying in this battle. Xiao Yan had to fight with his full strength in this battle. I will join you till the end. There was also a little excitement surging in Xiao Yan's eyes. This battle would become the top fight within the entire Dochi continent in 10,000 years. This battle would definitely spread through the generations. Everyone halted their breaths as they looked at the sky, which had become empty almost instantly. The two of them had not attacked, but their aura had already pressed on everyone's heart like a mountain. Clamor, clamor. The sea of blood covered the sky. Hun Tiandi's eyes' scarlet color seemed to have become much denser. His foot suddenly stepped forward as this face-off lasted for a moment. Bang! The entire sky had trembled as he took this step forward. The monstrous sea of blood churned crazily. It directly turned into a huge hundreds of thousand feet large blood wave as it ruthlessly swept towards Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's body was any tiny as an ant in the face of the huge 100,000 feet blood wave. Xiao Yan's eyes, which contained a brilliant glow, stared at the blood wave, which had a shocking momentum. The energy contained within it could easily shatter a 9-star elite Do Sheng along with his soul. Flame, come. Xiao Yan moved his mouth. A soft voice was emitted. The moment it did so, the land below rumbled and split into a huge gully. Crimson magma shot towards the sky like a fountain. Finally, it floated in the sky, turning into a huge magma wave that violently clashed with the blood wave. Boom! The land trembled. Blood rain that was accompanied with magma poured down from the sky like a storm. It enveloped around the entire central plains. Hun Tiendi was unsurprised that his attack was stopped. If it was so easy to finish off an elite Dodi, he would not have insisted on pursuing it for thousands of years. Despite this being the case, his expression had clearly become a little more solemn. Xiao Yang had received his attack with such ease. This meant that Xiao Yang had also truly entered this stage and was not relying on some external item to help him temporarily step into it. Blood demon heart eroding lightning. Hun Tiendi stepped on the blood lotus. His hand suddenly pointed towards the blood cloud that covered the central plains. The blood cloud immediately shook intensely like a giant organ and violently shrunk into his body. Bang! During the time that the seemingly boundless blood cloud was shrinking, the space itself also crumbled. Dark black cracks in space spread in the sky with a terrifying speed. In the next moment, the blood cloud suddenly spread. Countless mountain-like blood lightning crazily shot towards Xiao Yang below in a storm-like fashion. The energy contained in every drop of blood rain was sufficient to shock Yuan's group. A grave expression flashed over Xiao Yang's eyes as he looked at the blood lightning that came raining down from all over the place. Incomparably ferocious vicious aura was present in the blood lightning. If one was struck and the vicious aura entered one's body, it would end up damaging one's mind. Brilliant flame swiftly swept out from within Xiao Yang's body. Finally, it turned into a giant flame person that stood in the air. This flame giant widened its huge mouth. Immediately, the world became quiet. An extremely brilliant flame suddenly spat out from his mouth like a burning cloud and collides with the countless blood lightning. Rumble. The brilliant flame and the blood lightning crazily collided in the sky. The entire land trembled and formed many huge cracks under this incomparably strong energy fluctuation. Everyone's hearts were seized as they looked at the blood lightning and flame attacks that were exchanged in the sky. Such a terrifying exchange could no longer be described with words. Any single attack would likely cause countless deaths and injuries if it landed on the headquarters of the Alliance. Which of the two has a higher chance of victory? Lei Ying asked as he stood beside Yuan. Even he was also frightened by the terrifying battle. Yuan was startled as he heard this. He laughed bitterly and shook his head. This is also the first time I am witnessing a fight between Dodi. It is really difficult to predict just who has a higher chance of victory. However, Hun Tiendi is after all the clan head of the Hun Clan. An elite Dodi had also appeared in the Hun Clan before. It is likely that he would be a little better than Xiao Yang in terms of the usage of some energy. Of course, you need not be too worried. Xiao Yang had also obtained the inheritance of the Tu Shi ancient god. He might also possess some lethal attacks. Everyone could only smile bitterly and nod their heads after hearing this. They continued to watch the Great World Battle in an anxious manner. It was basically impossible for them to intervene when it come to such a big battle. This video will end here.